Best of r/malicious compliance episode 51. From 2003 to 2007, I washed dishes year-round in a restaurant, and drove water taxis in the summer. Balancing both jobs was difficult as they both required schedule requests submitted by 5 p.m. on Wednesday. Both managers wrote their schedules vindictively towards people who requested days off. For instance, if you typically work 5 days a week, and request 1 day off, you'll only get 4 days on the schedule that week. Also, both of them frequently scheduled me for shifts I had requested off, and upon confrontation would insist that schedule requests are just that, requests. So since they were both being dickheads about schedule requests, I decided to stop requesting schedules that don't conflict, and start waiting till I receive my schedules, then trading shifts to make it work. I was able to make this work for 3 consecutive summers, but 1 week, both managers got annoyed that I wasn't working the schedule they had written, and demanded I request approval before trading shifts to ensure nobody gets overtime. I thought that was a reasonable request, especially seeing as how I wasn't just giving away shifts, it was always an even swap. But the first time I requested approval for a shift swap, both managers denied the swap. Both managers told me I had to choose which job was more important to me. The water taxi manager thought his job was more important to me because it paid $1 more per hour plus tips, but he forgot it was just a dead-end summer job. The restaurant job manager thought his job was more important to me because he employed me year-round, but he forgot he cuts me back to 20 hours a week in the winter time, and pays peanuts year-round. I remembered my year-to-date income from tax season, and realized that they both paid about the same per year, until you consider tips, which I kept in a safe. I counted it out and realized it was about 3 times my year-to-date income from either job. In other words, the year-round job accounted for 1/5 of my yearly income. My summer job accounted for 4/5. On the day in question, I shut off my cell phone and drove a water taxi. The next day I went into the restaurant and learned that I had been removed from the remainder of the schedule due to no call, no show, voluntary termination. I explained that I had called many times. We had discussed at length that I wasn't going to be able to work that shift, but my arguments fell on deaf ears, and I've never been happier to not work somewhere. It's still my favorite restaurant and I eat there about twice a week. For years the manager would walk by my table and offer me my old job back, but I'd just laugh as I flashed a huge wad of cash to pay my bill. Thank you, next. So, not sure if this belongs here, because the threat of malicious compliance mitigated me having to maliciously comply. I had just started my new retail job a week previous. It was a miserable week. Bad customers had put me in a bad mood and the whole day it was pouring down rain. I had to grab something from my, new to me, car and ran back inside, which is when I realized that I had locked my keys in my car. So I wait till the end of my shift and try everything I can think of to pry my car open and get into my keys. Eventually, after failing every attempt, I call the local locksmith. 20 minutes later a large van rolls up and the locksmith hops out. This guy looks at my keys, sitting plainly on my seat, goes, "Oh yeah, that really sucks, man. Real shame." My ears perk up at the sound of very obviously false sympathy, knowing that this guy is calculating how much he can shake me down for based off the situation. Locksmith, LS, yep man, that's going to be about $200 for me to grab those keys for you. This man is very well aware that the next locksmiths are located another 45 minutes away. He knows I'm miserable standing in this rain and he means to take me for everything I'm worth. Unfortunately for him, I am a poor college student with a very bad attitude at the moment. Me, sorry, dude, I can't swing that right now. That's all I got to my name and I mean to eat this week. LS, well, unless you plan on smashing your way in there you're screwed. Ah, man. He's sure got me, no way around it. No way I'd be willing to break this car that's brand new to me just to get my damn keys. Psych. Me, good point actually, there's a Home Depot right over there, and a hammer's only like $5. LS, what? You're not really going to break your window, are you? Me, I'm not paying $200. I'll figure out how to fix my window later. LS, okay, I'll bring it down to $150. I keep walking towards Home Depot. LS, come on man, It's not worth busting your window over. This man's earlier confidence is replaced with a sudden realization he is going to go from making sweet money off of me to making nothing and watching me break something out of anger. Me, look man, I can swing $50. LS, can you do $100? Me, call it $75 and we have a deal. Defeatedly, LS, fine, but don't tell my boss I'm doing this for you. Me, dude, your name is on the van. 30 seconds later he uses a pump to pry open my door enough to grab my keys with a coat hanger. Nothing worth $200. Thank you. Next. So, last year I worked in a corporate cell phone / carrier store. It was basically my personal hell, because I like to help people and take care of customers and I don't like to intentionally screw people over with bad products. Background: this particular week, I had a regular customer come in, every month like clockwork. Because when I started at the store, he came in and asked me to set him up for a service I advised him against. Long story short, he's about 1,000 years old and tried to sign up for a notoriously difficult to cancel streaming service we provided. When we went to cancel it, he promptly forgot all the info we used to set up the account and got charged for it for like half a year. Anyways, I was in the back office asking my manager what I could do for him. I felt bad for the guy, he's ancient. And while he insisted on getting that service set up despite my protests, he didn't deserve to get charged for something he couldn't use for half a year. My manager, who didn't like to do anything positive for anyone unless there was a sale in it, told me it's your mess, Bailey the nerd. His account got screwed up on your watch. Now you fix it. Now, I have a very strong work ethic. I clean up my own messes. I fix my own problems. And I detest having to ask for help. So, this comment definitely set me on edge, knowing that my manager had whatever the opposite of a work ethic is. Several hours later my grumpy customer had left, coming to the same conclusion we had over the last couple months. My company had stolen basically $200 from him and nobody with any power was willing to give it back. I was idling on the sales floor, stewing over my manager's comments, when a sweet little old lady comes in. I ask her why she's in there and she's surprised by a recurring bill she's gotten for the last 2 months. For that same streaming service. I've worked with this particular little old lady before. She had her 80th birthday in the Devonian period. The closest thing she owned to a smartphone was her Nokia 3310. There's no reason this woman should ever have had this service. That's when I find out that my manager and another employee railroaded, yada yada dee, and otherwise just tricked this poor woman into getting this service. I know them. She had been in here to pay her bill. They told her they were going to reduce it, gave her some insignificant discount on her phone bill, and had her sign all the stuff to get on that shite service. I was furious. I already hated that I was expected to screw people over for a nice commission, but this was outright fraud. So I went back to manager's office and tell her, me, hey there's customer, here about having gotten signed up for TV Now, despite the fact that it's not even a service she could use since she doesn't have a computer or a smartphone. Manager, oh, can you tell her she can go to X website to cancel it? Me, I mean, I would, but she has no way to even get to the website, and she doesn't have an email to even sign up for the service in the first place, which is really odd. Manager, well, could you go help her cancel it? Me, I'm sorry, I'm still cleaning up that mess with my other customer. You know, she did mention that it was you and co-worker that helped her before this started up. Manager, could you get co-worker to me? He's not scheduled today. You could help her, or if you're too busy I could give her regional manager's phone number. Note, we had lost our district manager at the time because of a lot of fraud on his account. Regional manager was basically acting as our DM and did not like having to deal with anything issue made by a store manager. Manager, I guess I could go out and help her. Me, yeah, I guess you could. Don't ever do this again. She ended up helping this customer. She was stuck for the whole day trying to fix her screw up, and then had to work with that same little old lady month after month because that service was a nightmare even for us to cancel. It could only be cancelled through a widget, and you needed every detail about the account to kill it, including the bullshit email my manager made up and forgot to make the account in the first place. Sorry, there's no great comeuppance like her getting fired. She still works at that store, I think. but the entire time I worked there I successfully policed her most unscrupulous sales practices and kept her from doing this again. Thank you. Next. TL/Doctor. Rude customer insists that I only use one bag for his groceries. I used to be a cashier at a grocery store and all the stores in our area charged 5 cents for a bag except for us. It had been like this for years and then our store decided to start charging for bags too. We were also about the only store that bagged the groceries as well instead of just leaving them on the counter for the customer to deal with. Needless to say customers were outraged and we heard no end of complaints about it along with threats to shop elsewhere, even though every other store had been charging for bags for years. Many customers decided they didn't need a bag and ended up trying to carry a bunch of items loose in their arms, dropping things along the way to the parking lot. One day I was ringing through a larger order with price matches and a couple of old guys get in line behind my customer. They could have gone to Express, really too many items, but not that much, and our store would send people with comparable size orders there anyway to keep the lines moving, but they would have had to walk an extra 40 feet to get there. They immediately started chatting loudly to each other about how long I was taking, how slow I was, and that they should have gone to another line even though I had suggested the Express and they declined. It got to a point that when my current customer was done she turned and told them they were being rude and that I was one of the faster cashiers since I didn't have to look up codes and was also good at packing. It was really nice of her to do that and I thanked her. As I reached for the first item I asked if the old guys if they wanted to buy bags and got the whole I already pay for groceries. The bags should be included, which I took as a no. They didn't want bags. So I started scanning and leaving the items for the customer to deal with. Then they got upset because I wasn't bagging. Old guy decides he will take a bag after all, but only one bag and I'd better make sure it all fit, because he wasn't buying 2 bags. I'm really good at packing. Like really good at it. He had a mixture of cans, boxes and glass jars plus some fruit. And I crammed every last item in that one bag. Nothing was crushed so he couldn't complain about bruised fruit. The bag had to weigh 25 pounds and was so full that the handles barely reached each other. He saw what I was doing and started to bluster about he could buy a second bag, and I looked at him and said that he seemed to feel very strongly about using less plastic. So I was just doing what he had requested. I offered to charge him for a second bag, but he would have to repack his groceries at an empty checkout since the lines had gotten pretty long and I didn't want to have his groceries mixed with the next person's groceries, and I was trying to go faster to help more people. He decided to just take his bag and leave, but he had to carry it awkwardly since the handles didn't meet and he was trying to keep a hand underneath to support it. The person behind him was a regular who had seen the whole thing and was trying hard to not laugh until he left. She was great and we had a good chuckle about how well I could pack a bag full of far more than it should hold, and I didn't charge her or the first lady for their bags. Thank you. Next. So today I was training staff in the safe use of medication. I have a student turn up an hour and a half late. I politely inform said student that unfortunately have arrived too late to attend the session as I would not be able to catch them up on the vital information they had already missed. I do always try where I can, but that much time is just too much for what I was teaching. It is not a subject you can skimp on. The conversation went something like this: student, I don't see why you can't just catch me up during the breaks. Me, because they are also my break, student. So, that's not my fault. Me, unfortunately it is your fault you are late and I'm not willing to give up my lunch break. Student, I know your boss. So maybe you just let me take my seat and either catch me up during break or at the end of the session. Or do I need to ring your boss to tell you that? So now for MC, I tell the student to go ahead and ring my boss, which the student does. My student starts ranting at my boss and after about a minute my boss asks the student to put me on. I take the phone, look the student dead in the eye as I say, hey mum, what's up? I honestly think I saw this guy shit himself. I explain to my mum what has been going on and she asks to be put back on with the student. 30 seconds later, he is packing his stuff and apologizing deeply. I'm a health and social care lecturer. I train part-time and during holidays to supplement my income for my mother's training company. Turns out she did know him and not only taught him a new one professionally but personally as well. This woman raised 6 boys on her own. Edit. Thanks for gold and silver, kind strangers. Thank you. Next. I was working at a company for 5 years under a visa. The company had very quickly figured out it was easy to use and abuse people on visas and proceeded to do just that. My colleague and I were underpaid and overworked. He finally left. I stupidly believed they'd extend my papers. They initially agreed to do just that. A supervisor position opened up. I refused to cover that position without a title. I had essentially been doing that job for the past several years and I wasn't going to keep doing it without the acknowledgement. Basically for 2 weeks we had no one supervising us. I refused to do what I had been doing the whole time. It was an empowering moment because I finally snapped and said I was done. The department fell into chaos. There was no one of authority between us and the CEO and he was getting a great many calls. Finally he sent down the HR admin assistant to let me know I could apply for the position. It was petty as he had personally called every other person he wanted to take that position. Both previous supervisors who held that position had recommended me. But okay, I went ahead and submitted a resume and did an interview. They gave me the position but withdrew the offer, renew my papers which expired in a year. They told me I would have to leave in a year. Okay. 11 months later the department is running smoothly but I haven't heard anything about interviews or my replacement. They'd forgotten I was leaving. That's not possible, you say. After all that drama they couldn't possibly forget. Turns out they very much did. When I reminded them my visa was set to expire I was met with anger and denial. Because it was my fault somehow? To the point the CEO refused to speak with me or look at me. And HR was begging me to stay and trying to come up with ways I could stay. There was so much denial that no replacement was interviewed or ever trained. I had been working there for so long that I had simply absorbed multiple positions, leaving me as the only one who knew certain things. My last week I sat down with both HR and the CEO to outline everything I did. They were wounded till the end. Never announced I had left or who was taking over my position as was customary. I knew because I had several friends that still worked there. Where is the malicious compliance, you may ask? The papers were expired and you had to leave. See, by this point my situation had changed. I didn't inform them of this change. I could have continued to work there. But they wanted me to leave, so I was going to leave. As of today it has been 2 years and they have been through 4 people in my position. The current supervisor had an easily preventable critical incident occur during his watch, one that had never happened in the history of the business, within his first few months, so we'll see how long he lasts. They have had to hire additional staff because the people who replaced me are very busy and unable to manage everything I did. They've also had a 100% turnover in the department through resignations. During my tenure I had 1 resignation. Thank you. Next. Okay, so this happened literally 10 minutes ago and me and my grandma are still giggly bitches about it. If you've read one of my other posts, you'll know that I adore my dad. If you didn't, now you do. Well, for a little context, my dad drives a truck. It's modified. It's raised up by 4 inches on the front part, awesome rims, and I can't remember what he did with the muffler, but it sounds pretty badass when you start it up. Anyway, a rule dad set in stone is no parking right behind it or try to squeeze on either side. I don't know why, but it's that way. Me and my grandma just dropped off some guests who are visiting at the train station so they can go check out New York. When we get home, dad parked his sweet ride in the middle of the driveway, like, smack dab in the middle. Me and my grandma look at each other. We both knew one thing. There was absolutely no way we can park where we usually do. More context. Dad likes it when we park the SUV closest to the house and then the truck goes on the other side and takes up the rest of the space in the driveway. Me, marshmallow GMA, grandma. Me, we have to do it. GMA, op. That's horrible. Me, we know the rules. We have no other choice. She pulls the car up a few more inches. Me, GMA, we can't fit next to him or behind him. He's literally in the middle of the driveway. Besides, we can get back at him for all the times he blokes us in. I guess this is also r/pity revenge lol. GMA looks at me with a "are you serious" look. GMA then puts the car in park and gets out. We are now parked halfway in the driveway. I'm laughing as we go inside. Dr. Pepper never tasted too sweet. I had no idea I'd be able to put the reaction in as well. Dad had to take a cake to a family who lost a loved one and he got his truck keys. GMA and I are trying not to laugh as he walks halfway out the door and looks at us. Dad, really? Me, we followed the rules. We didn't try to squeeze beside or park right behind you. Dad, sighs and laughs. He pulled around the SUV. It was glorious as I called out I love you dad, as he drove off. Edit. Some people misunderstood my description. That's my bad for not clearing some stuff up and I'm sorry. I'm trying to get a picture put up. Edit 2. Here it is. A workable link for it haha. I'm so sorry it's crude. So yeah my crude schema lol.